Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're just going to do a quick overview of our custom roof basket and the ladders. For the last couple videos, you watched us kind of put together this custom roof basket and ladder setup. It's something that I knew that I wanted ever since I got the truck, but it came together really well. And so in this video, we're just going to go over a little bit of what we did, what I like and what I dislike about it, and what we would change if we did it again. But overall, it works really awesome, and I'm ready to get it out and do a little bit of overlanding with it. So right off the bat, from the side profile, the ladders is one of the first things that kind of draw your attention. This is a unique setup for the H2. I don't think I've seen another one with side ladders like this. More traditionally, there's rear ladders that you do. I've seen a couple really nice custom rear ladder setups, and Gobi makes a pretty nice rear ladder setup. There's a few caveats to the rear ladder. We do have our rear tire right here, and I'm planning on getting a little holder on that rear tire to hold the jerry cans for extra fuel. And with those on the side and with rear ladders, it's just going to make it a little bit harder to access those. These work really, really well. I got the idea from a few of the Tacoma, I think Tacoma or 4Runners that had, yeah, it can't be a Tacoma. Tacoma's a truck, stupid. Yeah, 4Runner. Yeah, 4Runner. I saw a couple 4Runners that had the ladders. And so we designed these to have the same curvature as the side of the truck. I know it looks like a big box, but it actually has a pretty decent curve to it. So put these 1-inch beams into the steel tube bender, and we just worked them until we had about the same curvature as the truck, and they turned out pretty good, honestly. In the bottom, they are mounted with riv nuts that go into the pinch weld. Normally, I would not suggest doing this, but the pinch weld on this rear body panel and that inner fender is incredibly strong. I was able to do pull-ups on it without having any sort of flex or motion, and so we decided to go with that. There is the possibility that if we were to bottom this thing out, that maybe the tires would grab this beam right here. We've already had this off-road on a few occasions on some pretty nice trails, and we haven't had that problem yet. I'm probably never going to take this truck into any sort of conditions where we could have that problem. If I did notice that we were having some big issues like that, the real simple solution for that would to just make a steel plate that comes all the way across and either bolts or welds here. Then we would round the edges off, and that would solve that problem completely. So if we did have an issue, that's a very simple solution. As you can see, this is incredibly strong. It's not going to go anywhere. So the first step is technically the tire, and then you have these 1, 2, 3, 4 more steps. This first step is a little close to the body kit, to the fender right there. Hasn't been a problem yet. It doesn't bother me at all. Plus the truck's beat up, so it's kind of the purpose of the truck is to get beat up. So I'm not worried if it gets straight. But pull yourself up, and that's the ladder. Okay. Oh, you see, GoPro. It's fine. See, it's a GoPro. It's made to get beat up. So. Anyway, so there's the ladder. The top of the ladder is bolted in just like the rest of our basket. So if you watched any of the videos on the basket, you'd see that we built steel brackets that sit inside the OEM little sliding rail right here, and they have bolts TIG welded to the bottom of them, and so we have this nice little bracket kit that holds everything together. So those are the ladders. If I were to do the ladders again, we might make them a little bit thicker. Once they're on the truck next to this really thick roof basket, they might be a little bit too thin. I've thought about buying some of the OEM Hummer side steps, kind of like what we have on here, and bolting those on and making them a little bit bigger. But honestly, they look really good. They don't induce very much wind noise, nothing that's very noticeable. All in all, they're very solid. They look great, and they work really, really good. They do their job right, and so I'm very happy with the way that they came out. So now we're here on top of the roof basket, and this turned out just about perfectly. The top of this is exactly what I wanted. The satin powder coat that we put on everything just really gives it that premium finished professional feel. But a lot of this, we just kind of had a general plan, and then we made up as we went along. And you can see it's extremely stable. We have little rows making up this frame, and on top of that frame, we have this expanded metal, and it just makes it very, very stable. There's not any noise. There's almost no flex at all. And it's gonna be able to hold a lot of weight. We have 5 mounting points along each side. And like I said with the ladders, those are just little steel tabs that we made that fit down inside of that stock mounting system, and they just bolt on just fine. And if we want to slide the entire basket forward or backward just a little bit, we're able to do that. Next up, we're going to order a ATV weatherproof toolbox for the back of this, and then we're probably going to put maybe a couple ammo cans up here on either side of our little sunroof portal. This is our system that we made for getting in and out of the truck whenever we want to come just right up through the sunroof. I use this all the time and it works really well actually. And so if we just want to hop through here, maybe in the middle of the night, we're sleeping up here, we can just flip this over and jump in. Can also run power cords and stuff up here. And so our hatch worked out exactly like we wanted. One thing I did not consider though when we were first building it is you can see the actual glass doesn't come all the way back to our roof line right here, and that's one simple mistake. I should have opened it up all the way to see how much room we actually have. I'm not too worried about stepping on that coming in or out, but if I would have redone this little hatch portal, we would have made it about 6 inches skinnier to accommodate that. So the next thing I'm going to show y'all is our light bar setup. So up front, we have this 50-inch curved light bar from Rough Country, and I'm so surprised by how bright this light bar is. It's incredibly bright, and I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. And our front wind deflector, we've actually curved this front panel and banked it at the same curvature and bank as our windshield. So I did that mostly for aesthetics. I'm not sure if it actually helps any with aerodynamics, but it sure looks a little bit more finished and professional doing it that way. In the back, we have 2 little pod lights from Rough Country as well. These are pretty decent lights, especially for the price. We've inlaid these into these panels here on the back. So they have a pretty good beam pattern that illuminates exactly the angle that I want. After having this out for a couple evenings and doing some night off-roading, I do think I might want to put maybe a bar light right up here that banks down, just so when we're reversing I can see a little bit more at nighttime. The wire harness for everything is ran underneath the expanded metal. We had originally planned to run it inside of these actual tubing, but it just wasn't going to be feasible because we knew we were going to have some of these big harnesses and things like that. And I went ahead and I left some of these plugs intact instead of just splicing them all together. In case we ever need to replace the entire unit, it'll make it a little bit easier. But we've run everything underneath this expanded metal. This light and this light are tied together, so they're spliced together. These run all the way up. It meets with the harness for the light bar. And then since this was the limited edition model, underneath this marker light, there is already a hole and a grommet for the OEM light bar that came on the truck. So everything is wrapped in the Painless Performance power braid, that really nice power braid wire that you see on computers and on some of the nicer show cars and things like that. Everything is wrapped in that, runs down through the A-pillar to our switch. So here's our switch panel. This is very rudimentary at the moment. I think we're going to build an actual housing for this little switch panel and mount it maybe on the A-pillar, maybe up here. Right now I just have it mounted in an old phone mount, which temporarily works great. I just haven't really decided where we're going to run it and where I want it exactly. It seems like it works pretty good right here, but everything is wrapped in this really nice wire loom. Really happy with it. And these work awesome. Brandon tied this into our running lights. And so if the key goes into the truck, whenever the running lights are on, this will automatically come on. If we want it to run without the key, so here's the key here, we can just kick this over and we get power. And then we're able to turn our light bar on and off. And you can see how bright that light bar is. Even inside of here in the middle of the day, that light bar is incredibly bright. It works really well. So that switch panel, you've probably seen it on Amazon and stuff if you've ever looked for gang switches. It's from a company called Auxbeam, and it's about $100, and it works really good. It's a nice kind of turnkey standalone system. You're not wiring in a whole bunch of rocker holes and like drilling holes in your dash. It just comes with that nice switch panel, and it also comes with a standalone fuse box and relay panel that we located inside of the engine bay, and it makes the install for everything very clean. I debated for a really long time where I wanted to put this additional fuse box, and we ended up just mounting it next to the OEM fuse box. And so we only have 2 things on that switch panel at the moment, but you can see right inside of here, we have a total of 6 different accessories that we can wire to this fuse box. And now that everything is routed and ran, whenever we want to install a new accessory, we simply just need to run the power wire to one of these locations right here, and that's going to correlate with one of the spots on the switch panel. We temporarily have all of the grounds ran just to this terminal post here on the top of the battery. What I'm planning on doing is getting a couple of the audio terminals that have a similar connecting system like this with the set screws, and that'll clean this up and make it look a lot nicer. As for the side panels of the roof box, I know this is a little untraditional design. Most of the time roof baskets are hollow, and a lot of that's to do with aerodynamics and things like that. But from the very start, I wanted this to have a very boxy style, just like the rest of the truck. And overall, I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. There's a few areas that we need to replace some riv nuts that just got pulled out. These rear panels, we recut them, and we got this one a little bit crooked, and you know, that's just part of it. And on this panel over here, there is a big gash that we didn't notice whenever we got the aluminum in from the metal company. If I would have noticed that, we would have done something to fill that in or maybe use it on the inside. Unfortunately, this panel could not have been flipped and put on the other side, just to the way that it's all designed. The holes weren't going to line up. So unfortunately, it had to be on the outside. Good news is, if it were to bother me a lot, we could easily remake that panel and have it re-powder coated. But honestly, the truck's kind of designed to get beat up and be scratched up, and I kind of hated how new and nice that looked when we put it up there in comparison to the rest of the truck, because the rest of the truck is, it's a little rough, and that's okay. If I were to redo any part of this roof basket design, honestly, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I probably would have come up another maybe 2 or 4 inches height-wise, just so I could fit some taller toolboxes up there without having them exposed. And then the one big oversight that I surely should have thought of is our mounting feet here. It made sense for us to make little L brackets where these mount into our slider system, but it would have been much cleaner to make the box an inch or 2 wider on either side, and then had those L brackets flipped and facing inward. That way you wouldn't have the mounting hardware exposed. Also would have given us a few extra inches of room. So that's a quick overview of the custom roof basket and ladders that we built for the Hummer. Overall, I'm so happy with the way that it worked out, and it looks very, very good in comparison to some of the brand name professional baskets that I've seen from some of the other companies for the H1 and the H2. I'm just as happy with this setup as I would have been if we would have went with one of those brand name baskets. I also got to have the experience of building it, and we built it to my specs, and so it's exactly the way that I wanted it. But that about wraps up this video. In the next one, we're going to be at the Maris Adventure Park out there in Claude, Texas. It's a really cool off-road park, and we're getting a little bit of early access before it's open to the public. So we're gonna try the Hummer out on some of the off-road trails and see what it does. And it's basically stock form. All we have is wheels and tires. And so excited to see how well it does with my very amateur experience in off-roading. Like I said, I guess that wraps up this video, and we'll see you in the next one.